This is Land of Havilah, Mark 11b. It's morning and Jesus is on his way to the temple. Along the way, he destroyed a fig tree by proclamation. Now, verse 15. They came to Jerusalem, and Jesus entered into the temple and began to throw out those who sold and those who bought in the temple, and overthrew the money changers' tables and the seats of those who sold the doves. He would not allow anyone to carry a container through the temple. He taught, saying to them, "Isn't it written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all the nations'? But you've made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the scribes heard it and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him because all the multitude was astonished at his teaching. When evening came, he went out of the city. Comment: we have a saying about what makes a person tick. The temple made Jesus tick. As prophesied in Psalm 69:9, "Zeal for your house consumes me," end quote, meaning Jesus was consumed with the temple. It was the house of God. He was that way from childhood. His parents took him to Jerusalem every year to attend the Passover, Luke 2:41. When he was 12, after being at the feast, his family left for home, but Jesus secretly stayed behind so he could hang out at the temple, Luke 12. He loved it. Since it was the law of Moses that every male of Israel should attend 3 festivals a year in Jerusalem, Exodus 23:17, Jesus went there often in his lifetime, and every time he must have noticed the marketplace and been angry about it. He quoted Isaiah 56:7, "My house will be called a house of prayer," and Jeremiah 7:11, quote, "Has this house which is called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, I myself have seen it, says Yahweh," end quote. Jesus himself saw it. In verse 15, he wrecked the marketplace, not by a miracle, but by his own hands, as anyone could have done, assuming he had the zeal for it. The fig tree along the way to the temple that morning was a parable of it. The fig tree didn't produce fruit, therefore he destroyed it with a curse. Israel wasn't producing fruit, so they were due for destruction. It wasn't God's original intention to destroy them. They chose destruction for themselves, according to the covenant God established with them in Leviticus 26. As he was walking to the place of the crucifixion several days later, he said to some bystanders God would destroy Jerusalem. Quote, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they will say, 'Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they'll begin to tell the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and tell the hills, 'Cover us.'" Luke 23:28 through 30. He didn't say it in anger. He said it through tears. Quote, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I would have gathered your children together, even as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left to you desolate." Matthew 23:37 and 38. He didn't come to bring desolation, but salvation. His name Jesus means Yahweh is salvation. Many did receive his salvation, but not many of his own nation. As he said, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country, Mark 6:4. Isaiah 53:3 predicted it of Israel, quote, "We esteemed him not," end quote. Jesus said he was a stone that the builders rejected, Matthew 21:42. He said he would be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and scribes and be killed, Mark 8:31. So Israel pronounced their own curse. Jesus never pronounced it for them. God laid the axe at the root of the fruitless tree, as Jesus predicted, cut it down and threw it into the fire, but not all. As usual, there would be a remnant that returned to him. The wrecking of the marketplace was a symbolic first blow of the axe, and the cursing of the fig tree was the parable of it. He wasn't angry at the tree. That would have been childish and unreasonable. He was thinking of Israel and their lack of fruit and their destruction. In verses 17 through 19, after he cleaned out the temple, he stayed there all day teaching. He explained why he cleaned out the marketplace and publicly rebuked the priests and elders for keeping it. In verse 19, that evening he went out of the city. The next morning, verse 20, as they passed by in the morning, they saw the fig tree withered away from the roots. Peter, remembering, said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree which you cursed is withered away." Comment, the fig tree was withered. It was a sign of Israel. Less than 40 years later, the Romans would devastate Israel, Jerusalem, the temple, the priesthood, and all the trappings of the old covenant. Verse 22. Jesus answered them, "Have faith in God. For most certainly I tell you, whoever may tell this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, and doesn't doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says is happening, he shall have whatever he asks. Therefore I tell you, all things whatever you pray and ask for, believe that you've received them, and you shall have them. Whenever you stand praying, forgive, if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father who is in heaven may also forgive you your transgressions. But if you don't forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your transgressions." Comment. In verse 21, after all this time being with Jesus, seeing him walk on water, multiply bread and fish, restore visibly deformed body parts, raise the dead, Peter was still amazed when he saw the fig tree withered. Jesus never ceases to amaze. In verse 22, Jesus said, in effect, you can do it too. Quote, "Have faith in God," end quote. Anything you ask in faith, you have. You can move mountains. If we remember just 4 of Jesus' words, have faith in God would be a good choice from verse 22. In verse 24, all things that you pray and ask for, believe that you have received them. This speaks to the gap of time between the moment we ask and the moment the answer becomes manifest. The gap might be a matter of seconds or a matter of years. During the gap, we're to believe that we've received. There might be doubt in the moment of prayer, but we can apply our faith during the gap. Quoting again, "Therefore I tell you, all things whatever you pray and ask for, believe that you have received them, and you shall have them." End quote. There would be no reason to believe that we've received them unless some of our answers would be delayed. During the delay, we should believe that we've received. In verse 25, quote, "Whenever you stand praying, forgive." It's not optional. If we forgive others, God will forgive us. If we don't, He won't. If we don't forgive, we're not in good standing with Him, and we shouldn't expect Him to answer us anything. Coming up, Jesus is arriving at the temple again 24 hours after He destroyed the marketplace. The priests and elders had all day yesterday to do something about it, but it's taken them until now to organize their response. Verse 27. They came again to Jerusalem, and as He was walking in the temple, the chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to Him, and they began saying to Him, "By what authority do you do these things?" Or, "Who gave you this authority to do these things?" Comment, by what authority did He have the nerve to destroy the marketplace, denounce them, and teach in the temple without their approval? Verse 29. Jesus said to them, "I'll ask you one question. Answer me, and I'll tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men? Answer me." They reasoned with themselves, saying, "If we should say from heaven, He'll say, 'Why then did you not believe Him?' If we say from men," they feared the people, for all held John to really be a prophet. They answered Jesus, "We don't know." Jesus said to them, "Neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things." Comment, it's not controversial anywhere in the world to say Jesus was a good man and a great teacher and philosopher. That'll get you a pat on the back. You'll be considered a harmless and well-meaning do-gooder. But if we maintain He spoke by the authority of God, there'll be anger. By what authority did He do those things? He didn't answer them because it was already obvious. We all know the rule that we should judge a person more by his track record than by what he says about himself. That's why Jesus said, "If I testify about myself, my witness is not valid." John 5:31. There was nothing his self-testimony could have added to his track record. They've been watching Him since chapter 2, verse 6. If they don't know who He is by now, they're unteachable. Mark 12 is next at landofhavilah.net. Mark 12.